The week. Prakash Diwan joins in for closing chat. Rahul Mohinder also joins us back to give us a technical check. Prakash, thank God it's the end of the week, right?
Yes,
I don't think you could have
DGIF.
handled any more pressure on this market. But are you looking at it as one big summer sale, or do you think that you can get better levels in the months to come?
Yeah, I mean, you could possibly theoretically get better levels, but you really can't time that so well. So if, and the same stocks may not be available at the same kind of valuation when the next time around you have this situation. So it's best to kind of identify your stocks, take a completely bottom-up approach, don't get carried away by the climate around. You know, the weather has been really inclement in the markets, but I think today the mood that the Reliance AGM set was pretty positive in terms of, if a stock like Reliance starts participating, I'm sure, things could be positive for the Nifty as well. But otherwise, on a bottom basis, there's enough opportunity, good valuations available.
Like what? What would you buy from
I continue to
market?
Yeah, so last time I talked about a company like Balkrishna. It continues to be available. It hasn't lost any ground in this whole week. Would buy into that, and Indo Count, which again, Indo Count Industries, which is a mid-cap, hasn't yet lost ground in spite of such a sell-off in the market, but hasn't gone up either. So, you could buy into these things. It's still available at about 10 times FY16 earnings. So, those are good companies you could accumulate. Jyoti Laboratories also. It's the third largest textile player in the home linen segment. And it's getting into more and more high margin activities. But the best part about this company is if businesses run so efficiently, the margins have been so good. It's already topped 100 crores of net profit last year on a small base. So without much of capex, it's probably going to ride much better on the ROE side.
Yeah, and to my benefit, I think it's a mid-cap mania stock. So yeah, it's done quite well. But let's get in Rahul. Rahul, we're just looking at a few stocks, and a lot of losers this week. A lot of those high beta stocks getting spanked. But something like Asian Paints, even today, it's not participating at all. For the week itself, it's down 7.5%. How is it looking?
No, we're still negative on it, but again, if you ask me that would I go and short, Asian Paints at these levels, or get worried here, we've got to factor in that 680 to 700 is a very big support on this stock. So I think if you're looking at a long-term strategy, this is not a point to really initiate a short or to stop out positions. I think it's probably going to test your patience around these levels. So at the current price points, one should stay put in the stock if you're holding into it. And in fact, if you're looking at a longer term horizon of a year or greater, maybe this is a good point to start accumulating.
All right, we have 10 more seconds to go, so we'll find out what you gentlemen are recommending to accumulate. In just a bit, let's just run our viewers through the market momentum. Today has been a decent day, so after that big carnage that we saw yesterday, there's been a mild attempt to recover. It's not a convincing attempt, to be frank, but nevertheless, at least we've not seen any further worsening of the market levels. 79.91 on the Nifty, a marginal gain of about 0.3%, just consolidating after that big loss that we saw yesterday. The Bank Nifty did quite well, so the Bank Nifty up almost about 1.5%, but the market breadth is quite weak today, so that is an indication that the trader sentiment continues to be on the downside. Let's take you through some of the big gainers. The banks, like I said, the private sector banks did well. ICICI Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, HDFC, IndusInd Bank all gained about 2 to 3% odd. Then you had Tata Power, which was the big gainer, so 4.5% up there. Bajaj Auto did well. Maruti Suzuki was on the upside. M&M, in fact, Bajaj Auto has been a decent mover this week. It's up about 4% odd for the week. It's bucked that falling trend, so there's some buying at lower levels in Bajaj Auto. Then you have Ultratech Cement, a couple of other names like Bharti, Axis Bank. The theme of the day was there was a lot of buying in the market leaders of different sectors. So whether it's ICICI Bank, whether it's Maruti, whether it's Reliance, Bharti, Lupin, a lot of these companies saw gains of around 1 to 4% odd. On the downside though, NMDC under pressure, Vedanta down ahead of that board meeting on Sunday, Hindalco, TCS, a couple of other stocks. In fact, technology didn't do well because of that whole H1B visa issue. So TCS, Infosys down, but the others also followed suit. HCL Tech and Wipro down about 1.5%. But for the week, the key takeaway for the week is that it's been quite a disappointing week for the market, one in which we lost out on that 8,000 level, which was the crucial support zone zone. So now the index is down about 12-13% from the peak of 9100. But a lot of experts believe that this is generally the way corrections pan out in a bull market, to the tune of around 15-20% But what about mid-caps?
You know, Sonia, we were struggling till the time we started off the show, but luckily the mid-cap index as well managed to end in the green. We'll be getting those final rates, but it appears that it ended mildly in the green. A few stocks that were gaining, something like an Elder Farmer did quite well. A lot of talk, a lot of rumors going on with regard to that counter. It was high, by close to around 10%. ABG Shipyard as well, they confirmed that they are in talks with a couple of parties, so that's why in fact that stock was high by a good 8%. We had a couple of good performers of the last 12 months that came back into the buying list today. So UPL should come up for you. Century Textiles as well did quite well in today's trading session, and from the OMCs we had something like IOC that did reasonably well in today's trade. Ahead of the weekend, Jubilant Foodworks as well managed to end in the green, while Arvind as well did do quite well. It was high by a good 2%. The other losers though, Mastech was adjusting itself to that demerger, so that stock was down. Now in fact it's adjusted itself. It's ended at around 147 approximately, but that high beta space really got spanked. So JP Associates was under pressure, HDIL was under pressure. We did see something like Torrent Power as well come under pressure in today's trading session. Pull up Mindtree as well, that stock as well did end deep in the red. And Tata Global Beverages, again some trader talk on that one. In fact that one ended lower by close to around 4.5%. Novartis, it opened up lower by close to around 12-13%. The Indian listed entity has denied any kind of delisting plans and the likes, but that one recovered close to around 8-9% from the day's lows. Watch out for that stock as well. But for the week itself, Sonia, the mid-cap index as well was down 2.5%, but at least it ended the week on a positive note.
Okay, let's brighten up the chat a little bit and ask our guests what they're recommending now. Prakash, you were telling us about a couple of stocks, you know, names like Balkrishna, etc. But anything else from, you know, many of these leveraged companies fell this week. Is there any trading pop that you would advise there, or would you completely stay away?
Yeah, I mean, it's too early to...
real estate stocks,
yeah, absolutely, like Unitech, JP. I know it is sound tempting because they've fallen so much, but, you know, that falling knife theory does work. And then we've seen, you know, it's a bit too early for them to have gone into that repair mode very decisively. I mean, they're beyond all possible means to get things right at this point in time. So if something were to develop, then they become a, you know, then there's a story in it. But otherwise, it's a bit too difficult to expect that these will turn around very quickly. They could make you wait for too long for that to happen. And that point in time, the opportunity that you have to invest into something else goes away very easily. So I don't think people should look at it very hungrily to get into it just because it's available at $7 or $8 from where it was.
Prakash, another follow-up question. You were talking about Balkrishna and these auto bank stocks. But Bajaj Auto, it was a big outperformer, I think, this week. It was pretty steady. It was high by close to around 3.5%. Yeah. And the markets, as we know, were falling apart. From the frontliners, how does it look?
Oh, it does look very promising. In fact, I think as we see Bajaj morph into more of an exporter than a domestic play, it's going to get insulated from, you know, early monsoon showers and late monsoon showers and stuff like that, which we keep on seeing a two-wheeler get, so players get impacted with. But the other thing that they've done is they've had these bursts of R&D enthusiasm, which they keep on doing things, and then, you know, realize that they're missing out on a particular range or price point, and they work towards it. Last year, they'd done a lot to work towards the lower end price points, you know, where Hero MotoCorp was eating into the market share big time, and that's kind of started looking up for them. And I think Bajaj has a couple of other positive triggers. RE6 itself is a big trigger if it works well. So hopefully, you know, people would also want to count on that.
All right. Rahul, final word from your end. You were telling us that, you know, this is the good time for investors or traders to get into the market. What are you recommending for long-term investors now?
I think there are a lot of stocks which have corrected, you know, at least in the short term, which can be utilized. They're still in momentum, you know, names like Jubilant. You know, it's a momentum play, it's high risk. But if you're willing to get in with a stop loss, say at 1600 odd, one could look at getting into the stock. I still think there's a story there even on the short term as well as the longer term. Even for that matter, if you can look at, say, the oil marketing companies, the BPCL and HPCL, I think these stocks should, you know, these corrections should be utilized to buy into these. You know, I like these from a 3 to 6 month kind of horizon. So there's clearly trading pops visible, you know, amongst the OMCs. Amongst heavyweights, my attention would go towards Bharti, as I was pointing out earlier, and, you know, Maruti for that matter. I think both those stocks, deserve an up move. And amongst the autos, if I add to that list, I agree with you there. Bajaj Auto certainly makes my list technically too. So I think all of these look interesting plays. They've corrected a good bit over the last few weeks. And, we could see a good 8-10% bump up in a few days itself.
All right, then. So that's a view on a couple of stocks. But Prakash, let me get your view onto this entire Vedanta and Kane deal that is proposed to happen over the weekend. It's going to keep me very busy as well. But I wanted to ask you, what's your take on it? I mean, Kane's the one sitting with all the cash. Hindustan Zinc, currently at least, that's not a plain part of in this deal because of...
At least as of now.
At least as of now, yeah. And so what's your take? I mean, Vedanta is the one with that big debt, 77,000 crores of gross debt. The parent sitting as well. They have some debt payments this year.
Yeah, so, the other day when Kane PLC agreed for this whole thing itself, you could make out that, as I said earlier, there's much more than what meets the eye to this whole effort, because it's a significant effort in terms of accounting terms, integration terms, and I'm sure the management has some salience which they see in this whole process. But to my understanding, it only puts idle cash to better use, and they probably expect a turnaround in the Vedanta business. Maybe, the commodity cycles turned over, or whatever, or it's closer to that. And Kane also might not be now as aggressive in terms of expanding into newer fields. Exploration itself is kind of, a business which is slowing down because crude is not likely to. It's kind of topped out. Yeah. It's not going back to the 100 levels very soon. So it doesn't become so profitable for Kane to spend that money very quickly. They would have to time it with crude actually going up. Otherwise, they really don't make that kind of money from their investments. So it could make sense, but I'm sure, we'll have to wait for the contours to be out. As you said, you'll enlighten all of us on Sunday on this, and then it could become importantly, decisively clear whether you need to back Vedanta or Kane as a stock. And as a disclosure, I have some exposure to Kane, so I'll also be interested in that.
Okay, so then you don't have to wait till Monday to watch Nigel. You can tune in on Sunday and he'll be right here with us bright and early.
Yep, post-lunch it's dessert.
Working weekend for Nigel. Well, once in a while, right? That's okay.
Yeah, more than once in a while. So when you're JSPL, or sometimes their blocks get admitted, sometimes they get cancelled. So Saturday, Sunday, I've been there quite often. I'm sure everyone's listening to that. But,
why can't they just do it on a Friday or a Saturday, right?
Friday, Saturday, we're good with it. But anyway, Sunday, so we'll tune into us. We'll be covering all the action. But thanks, Prakash. Thanks, Rahul, for joining this afternoon and giving us a view on all those stocks.